In May of 1968, Bill France stood on the side of an abandoned airfield in central Alabama with a shovel in his hand and a singular vision in his head. He was ready to break ground on a racetrack that he promised would be longer, faster, and more intense than his current crown jewel of Daytona. While many questioned France's reckless determination, doubt never crossed into the promoter's mind, and up around his shovel sprung up a racetrack known the world over quite simply as Dega. Welcome, race fans, to the Global SimRacing Channel's coverage of tonight's Breast Cancer Awareness 150 at the truly legendary Talladega SuperSpeedway. I'm DJ Clark. Alongside me here in the booth is Gary Weaver. Behind the scenes, our director tonight is Sean Ambrose, and he'll be using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. We've got a great night of racing in store for you, but before we dive in, let's get you up to speed and introduced to this fearsome racetrack by bringing in my broadcaster partner for the night, Gary Weaver. Gary?
Thanks, DJ. Like you mentioned, this track is very fearsome. It has had its fair share of spectacular, in a sense, crashes, spectacular finishes. It is absolutely incredible. Relatively simple track, of course. Well, it goes down to the phrase that's usually used as a joke, which is, of course, go fast and turn left. And there's really all to it, at least on when you're running on your own. When you're with somebody, well, you're going to have to be careful when lining up that front and back bumper when bump drafting. Pushing in the corners is not generally advised. Of course, you could loosen up somebody's back bumper, so relatively you just have to get there at the end, and there's really no preferred lane unless you want to make a preferred lane with yourself and many other drivers. We have at least about 4 car widths available and a little bit more in this tri-oval.
Well, it's certainly going to be a spectacular race to watch, and let's bring up the race details as we see these cars circling around this mega Talladega Superspeedway. This, of course, is going to be 150 miles, which translates roughly to 54 laps. We are running all 3 models of the NASCAR Xfinity cars, so that's going to be the Fords, the Chevys, and the Toyotas. We are racing a fixed setup tonight with 100% fuel, and we have on the table 1 faster pair. So if you get into a little bit of a bump and run or something that messes up your car, you will be able to come in and swap that out rather quickly. And as we watch now these cars working their way around the track, let's also take a look at the weather tonight. Gary, what can you tell us to expect here in virtual Alabama?
Well, as we see, it is 68 degrees in air temperature, so relatively cool in the air, but the track, however, is a scorching Arizona levels of 101 degrees Fahrenheit, the wind going southeast at 8 miles per hour and 33% humidity. But that southeast, that wind speed at southeast 8 miles an hour, it doesn't seem much, but of course, depending on where that wind is going, it could give you a little bit of a headwind or even a tailwind. So that is going to be playing into a factor, but for that 101 degrees of track temperature, that's going to be hurting the tires a little bit more possibly than these drivers had expected.
It may shake out for some strategies, as we've seen some long-form strategies play out here at Talladega, but on a shorter race like this, we'll just have to wait and see. But as we watch these cars circulating their way around Talladega right now, you can see Presley Sora currently topping the charts with a 50.658. Right behind him, Jason Nethery at 50.7, Stephen Brown a little bit behind them, and Adam Sweet and David Westergren finishing out your top 5. There's a good view of Sora's car right now. Gary, what's the fastest way to get around this track when we look to qualifying? Obviously not going to have any of the benefit of the draft to get around here. What lane do you think is going to be the fastest way?
Well, just as demonstrated by this group on the back straightaway, almost very coincidentally timed. Well, it's going to be this inside lane. It's always the preferred lane here at Superspeedways, but of course, it's not always directly on that inside yellow line. You see where these drivers are leaving about 1 to 2 feet of space between their left side tires and the yellow line. That is incredibly ideal when using this track in the inside lane for qualifying. So you don't want to get right onto that yellow line, or else you could loosen up your car, and those thousandths of a second when it comes to qualifying matter very greatly.
They certainly will. As you watch this pack working their way around, as Stephen Carlisle now jumping up to the fastest lap, that number 4 with a 50.5. Leading this pack here is Zachary Buzanich with Broderick Roa and Patrick Burns, Stephen Carlisle, Nicholas Rees, just all fighting for position here. You can see that bump draft really coming in, Gary. That's going to play a huge factor here tonight, I have to think.
That's a key thing here at SuperSpeedways and at Talladega in particular. Of course, well, in some cases, at, say, Michigan or Auto Club, you can push down the back straightaway. It's not exactly recommended, but here you have relatively the entire track. The corners, if you are very daring to try and push through there, but again, throughout this tri-oval, and of course, as always mentioned, the start-finish line being past the tri-oval turn, well, that is going to be the tri-oval, of course, the key place to have a push when coming to the white flag.
It certainly will, as you see this pack starting to fan out 3 wide there, just absolutely going tooth and nail, diving down a little bit below that yellow line, trying to find something. Now, Gary, for anybody unfamiliar with the iRacing service, you know, we talk about in real life these Xfinities and these NASCAR cars of, you know, the differences between the manufacturers, between Ford, between Chevy, between Toyota. Is there really much difference on the virtual sim here?
Well, I'll say from personal experience of driving pretty much only Chevrolet when it comes to the NASCAR side of things, from my experience, there's really no major difference, of course, in terms of, well, some things like that. Well, in some cases there could be a difference, such as the front bumper design on some cars, but at the same time, with those being adjusted ever so slightly on iRacing to, of course, better match at some points when need be, well, everything is relatively the same. The only difference really is the driver behind the wheel, and there's, again, no major difference between Chevy, Toyota, or, again, from my experience, Chevy, Toyota, or somehow I'm blanking on the third one, Ford. There we go. Only took me about 5 hours to get that one. So really, when it comes to the only differences, well, that could be the speed of the trucks versus the Xfinity cars versus the Cup cars, especially at super speedways.
And you saw what we are probably going to be seeing a lot of tonight, and that is the potential of the big one. A bunch of those guys, Nicholas Rees, a few of them, just getting into each other wide as everybody fans out down the backstretch here. And that is David Westergreen working his way down sort of that middle lane and diving into the line, that number 22, working his way through everything. Stephen Carlisle still sitting at top the standings, with Brent Jones now able to work his way up forward. So we are about 2 minutes away from qualifying starting here for the race. Gary, how important is qualifying going to be for these Xfinity drivers?
It's going to be incredibly important. As many times as I've thought, I wonder if I should qualify. I wonder if I shouldn't qualify. Well, it's being super speedways, of course. It's either it goes well or it doesn't go well, no matter where you qualify. Sometimes things go in your favor, sometimes things don't go in your favor. But preferably, in some cases, you want to get yourself at the front of the field. Mid-pack, well, maybe at some cases. In the back of the field, well, if you're with your own teammates, you can, of course, lay back a little bit, let everyone sort themselves out, and then try and come back a little bit later on in the race. But in some cases, I'd say qualifying would be a must-have and a must-do in some cases, especially when it comes to trying to get away from, essentially, sometimes the middle of the field.
And the middle of the field, that prime place for any of those big ones, as you watch Jason Nethery work his way down to pit lane. Everybody now looking like they're just going to kind of sit into line here, wait for these final 40 seconds to tick off the clock before they can start qualifying. Any favorites here tonight, Gary? Anybody you're going to be watching to really assert dominance on this field?
Well, so far, just based off of time alone, Stephen Carlisle looks to be someone to beat. But of course, again, that time was based off of practice with the draft. So that could be, again, something to keep an eye on. A name that I recognize from a long while back from Personal Things. I've also done the broadcasting side. Presley Sora, fourth on the timing standing. So a very familiar name in my case. So I think for Presley Sora, this could be a little bit of a race to win, but of course, it all comes down to what we're going into now, which is qualifying.
And there you see on the top of that GSRC tower counting down to the qualifying, ready to start. We're going to reset here before everybody gets their chance to go around here. Just a quick note that qualifying, well, there it is. It is the temperature here on the track has jumped up a degree up to 112. So that's going to make things a little bit more difficult for these drivers as they start to make their way back onto the track. This is going to be single qualifying, so only one car on the track visible at a time. As you see right there, that is the number 98 car of Presley Sora. So one of the early good runners, that Indiana driver, hoping to have a good run here tonight.
How good of a run that Sora can get. Again, qualifying very key, running up top just to trying to get a hold of things, and in some cases, which I of course am not entirely surprised, some drivers really usually decide to run just the top line just for fun on their first lap, and then they move right back to the inside lane. So kind of using that first lap to run on the high side to warm up the tires, although that 112-degree track temperature is kind of doing that already. But of course, warming up the tires, warming up the car, getting acquainted with the outside lane, and then moving to the inside lane to actually set that first qualifying time. So the 98, and most likely everyone else as well, goes for the top side on this first lap. It will not usually be the fastest lap time.
So we're just going to sit back here and watch Sora as they work their way around the track, try to analyze a little bit of handling for you here. You can see him really just working that car as he goes down the backstretch. Now, obviously, the backstretch, a little bit of banking down there, but not too much. And they're just going to keep pushing it down. You see him here lining it up. Gary, where's the best place that you think he's going to make this transition down to that low line and make the real run?
From personal experience, again, usually it would be off of turn number 4 going into the tri-oval, but in this case, I'd say off the tri-oval going towards that start-finish line, going from the top side right down into that inside lane to get that preferred lane. So we'll see if the 98 does do so. Yes, actually midway crossing it down into the middle lane and then slowly moving over. That's going to be a key thing, trying to keep that momentum and not scrubbing off speed. The thing that I'm noticing right now as well is that Sora's miles per hour right now, 176 as compared to 100 and about 90 at maximum in the draft.
That's really going to hurt those guys when they are running up front with nobody to push behind him, as we now watch Scott Rickard putting in a 54.5. Now, that obviously lap time not representative as everybody's running high. And here comes John Gifford working his way around the track, the Midwest driver, coming past the start-finish line, past the tri-oval there. Looks like he's going to run a little bit of a modified line, as now we're going to watch Stephen Brown coming through the tri-oval to cross the line.
Utilizing that inside lane, that's that number 37 machine. Looks to be good enough for second place at the time of crossing that start-finish line. Presley Sora crosses the start-finish line and gets right to the top of that timing tower. And now the wonderment of everybody is, can that time be beat, or how close can these drivers get?
Well, there you saw Stephen Carlisle trying to put in the best time he could, only able to get to a 53.892. That's not going to be good enough to beat Sora. So very early on, it looks like Sora's going to have the advantage line here. We're going to watch John Gifford putting in his first lap, running that low line all the way around, and he's going to come in with a 53.9. That is going to get him placed in the field. We watch Stephen Brown, currently 16th, running that low line through the tri-oval. He's going to come across the start-finish line with a 54.052. Not able to improve. That's going to keep him back in 16th place. As here you see Drew Bernardi making his way to the pits. His race done. Lee Applebaum now in that Miami Dolphins car working onto the backstretch.
I think that's actually going into the tri-oval. But in the meantime, though, as Applebaum will continue to make his rounds, it looks like the 55 as well of Adam Sweet on his final lap time, as we see John Gifford going to be working his way through the tri-oval. Adam Sweet has yet to get off of turn number 4 at the moment. Will be close, but should be able to make it. In the meantime, can John Gifford better that 53.9? Yes, although by a very minuscule margin, only about 0.03 of a second, as Zachary Bozanich will be crossing the start-finish line in that number 1 machine. Can he get to position number 1? No, he cannot. And I believe actually that may have been his outlap. It was not. So very, very close call here, as Adam Sweet has also crossed the line, gotten up to second place.
And that's a good run from Sweet there as you see qualifying over, and we will start to run you through the field here for the Breast Cancer Awareness 150 at Talladega as these cars start to grid up. Starting on the inside of row 1 is going to be Presley Sora, putting in that great time of a 53.866. To the outside of them, Adam Sweet, and the inside in row 2 will be Stephen Carlisle. Broderick Roa lining up to the outside of him in the 4th place position. Jamie Dobbs in 5th, followed by Austin Greer in 6th place. Patrick Byrne lining up in 7th, followed by Jason Nethery in 8th place. Octavio Rondeletto in 9th place, and Zachary Bozanich lining up in 10th.
In 11th is going to be Scott Ricard. 12th place is going to be Lochie Brown. 13th place is going to be David Westergreen. 14th is John Gifford. 15th is Drew Bernardi. 16th place will be Nicholas Rees. 17th is going to be Gavin Newton. Stephen Brown starts 18th. William Kruska starts 19th. And rounding out the top 20 is Wesley Fuller.
And starting off tonight in 21st place will be Lee Applebaum, followed by Emmanuel Lopez, who did not set a time. Kevin Kittleman in 23rd, also not setting a time, alongside Brent Jones, bringing up the back of the field in 24th place. Now, as we see here, drivers getting their final talk from race control as they're going to start to lay out here. It looks like we're waiting for Adam Sweet to grid in as well. Everybody just kind of lining up there. You can see from the top vision of these cars, everybody going to have to sort of just keep it patient. You would be surprised just how long this pace lap at Talladega can be. This 2.66 mile oval, the longest oval in the entirety of the United States. It feels like an eternity, I can tell you, when you are driving around here. But race control about to finish up their driver briefing, just telling everybody to race nice and clean and trying to keep everything together. Obviously, bump drafting is going to be good as here the pace car gets off and moving, and we are ready to get going here at Talladega. You can see these cars just fanning out a little bit. That's Adam Sweet diving down to the inside. Not sure if he's got a problem or if something's going on. Maybe just trying a little trick to warm up his tires or something. Not entirely sure. We'll check back on that. There you can see a great shot of this banking, and I'll tell you, you do not know just how fearsome this banking is until you have seen it in person. It is one of the wonders of the world. Absolutely incredible to see. And really allows for these cars to absolutely not lose any speed whatsoever as they come around these corners. See there, setting out onto the track, drivers weaving back and forth, trying to get some heat in these tires. But as Gary told you earlier, with a now 113 degree track temperature, this is gonna be a hot scorcher. So tire wear may come into effect in this race. We're gonna have to keep an eye on it. Normally these fuel stops can take you to about 28 or so laps on a full tank in these Xfinity cars. But we'll have to see with this special event. There you see that green car of, I believe that's Jamie Dobbs, just warming up those tires, trying to get anything going. We come back here onto the turn 3 entrance. Working everything up. That's Adam Sweet there on the bottom, I believe, trying to get back into place, maybe just falling back into line. Once again, we're going to have to check and see what happened there. I think he may have gotten a penalty for slopping over the yellow line. So that may be what happened to Adam Sweet, being relegated to the back of the field. But as these cars come through turn 3 and 4, everybody ready to go. Tensions are running high. We are ready to see. Presley Sora is going to lead the field here. Broderick Roa ready to go behind him. This is going to be fast and furious, ladies and gentlemen. Talladega does not know how to do things nice. This is going to be dirty, and this is going to be fun. Presley Sora now having control of the field. They're ready to go, lining up into the restart zone. You can hear the engine starting to thunder, waiting for the green flag to fly, still waiting. Sora there, waiting for the flag. Everybody looking towards the flag stand, and here we go. The green flag is out, and the thunder is rolling. Sora and that is Boa right neck and neck as they go diving down into turn 1. trying to get this out. The rest of the field sorting out behind them, looking like we're going to stay too wide pretty much through here, through this first corner. Nothing too screwy coming through. They're going to really try to do it. A couple of guys running high there in the back, but the order right now is going to be Sora Carlisle able to get a great jump on the field. That low line really proving to advantage, but that is Patrick Byrne working his way out to the outside. And Gary, this is getting really fun.
And just like that, on the first opening lap, Wesley Fuller is out in front by about crawling for the outside lane, falling back, unfortunately, being led by the 91 of Jamie Dobbs. And we'll see if it is possible for the outside lane to get regrouped and refired, essentially, get back up and challenge for the outside lead. In some cases, well, in corner exit, it's not really going to help to be on the outside lane, but down that back straightaway, you can see in some camera angles as well that the outside lane or inside lane, the difference in speed, and we can see exactly who has that effort and who has the momentum. It's absolutely incredible. That momentum going to the 91, the 20, however, so close to the back bumper that he's weaving a little bit all over the place, and that's another key thing, DJ, is that we're so close to the back bumper. It's that sometimes you can't really even see, and sometimes you almost get left out to dry through the middle, as Jamie almost was.
Oh, I thought for sure that Broderick Roa and Jamie there were going to have a little coming together, as now they're going to come in. It looks like Roa right underneath him, going to maybe give him a little bit of a bump draft as they come into the tri-oval. Good move from them. That top lane really just having to work together to try to get something. Broderick Roa keeps popping out to the outside, thinking he may have a run, but nothing happening as Presley Sora and Jamie Dobbs now really just being able to try to run away with this. That's Stephen Carlisle on the inside with Sora, really just pushing forward, that inside line being the preferred line around this track.
And of course, the outside lane having a huge charge. And now the thing is, will the 91 of Dobbs go to the inside, or will he bring that 20 with him? That's going to be a very key thing, as the 91 will leave the 20 out front to lead the outside lane. And that's actually kind of a good thing. It's a mix of a both good and bad thing when it comes to super speedways. It's that, do you want to have the person pushing you on the outside still stuck behind you and heating their engine up even more as they push you on the inside? Or do you at least want to take the lead for yourself? It seems selfish at first, but at the same time, it benefits the driver on the outside lane because their engine gets to get cooled down. They get to stay in the race, in a sense, in a strange way, kind of like sportsmanship.
That's a good way to put it, Gary. And I have to ask you, with these temperatures just continuing to climb here around Talladega as they work their way back, and we've got our first accident, as that's the number 4 of Stephen Carlisle getting into it. Many cars spun around, and our first yellow is out.
More drivers still getting involved, but a relatively small accident, DJ.
Certainly small for the size of Talladega. We're going to bump back here on replay. You can see that that was the number 4 of Stephen Carlisle and the number 20 getting into it. That's Broderick Roa. We're going to jump back here. Gary, talk us through what happens.
Over on the inside lane, the 4 has that momentum, tries to move up. The 20 also moves down. It's one of those moments where someone moves down, someone moves up a little bit, they catch themselves, and they think they're fine. Unfortunately, that was just not the case already there from that shot. 4 cars involved, and maybe about 5 or 6 out of the drivers that we have today out of 24. So that fast apparent for some drivers, unfortunately, coming into play incredibly early on, and maybe a bit too early.
Certainly may be, as we've seen races in Talladega definitely devolve a little bit as they go along. By my count, I see Drew Bernardi diving into the pits. Adam Sweet looks like he may have been involved in that, as well as Zachary Bozinich. Definitely, he was that bright sort of pink and yellow car that got caught out. So all of them dealing with it. I'm watching right now Stephen Carlisle continuing to go around the track. There's Bozinich right there. You can see that damage in the front and the back of that Toyota.
That's unfortunately heavy damage as well, and by that point, it's a little bit of aerodynamic damage, and that's the point where you wonder, okay, well, do I want to use my fast repair early, or would I rather instead just try and repair everything that I can now? So we'll see in some cases what exactly happens. A few drivers going to pit road without damage. In fact, many drivers going to pit road, maybe trying to make it past that halfway point.
They could be, as that's an interesting strategy for them, as I've seen a lot of the guys with damage diving in as well. Carlisle, Lopez, Sweet, Bozanich, all of them coming on in. Drew Bernardi looking like he was the one to actually get lucky there as he was able to come around. You can see Octavio Rodinello there coming on out. He's gotten that car nice and good, fueled up and ready to go as he's going to peel on out of the pits, the first one to make it back out here at Talladega.
5.9 seconds in pit road for that number 77 machine. Everyone else looking to take their time and repair maybe a little bit of bit of damage here and there are some of these drivers that were involved. So it's going to take a lot of time for sure. And well, by the looks of it, the number one of Bozanich is actually going to be repairing it without a fast repair.
I was actually going to ask you, Gary, about that strategy of maybe trying to hold that fast repair for later if it's just relatively aerodynamic damage that these virtual crews can sort of pound out with a mallet. Is that a strategy worth taking?
I'd say it's very much worth taking, especially after how early of a crash this was. And while there's just under 50 laps to go, I wouldn't risk it personally. I wouldn't really want to take the risk of taking a fast repair early after having maybe, say, a bit of damage here and there, as opposed to, well, I've got a blown engine. I probably should take my fast repair and take my chances afterwards.
Well, that's going to be the case. The question I was starting to ask you before we had our first incident on the backstretch was how much do these drivers have to take into account that engine overheating? Is that something they actively have to manage, or is it something that they can just kind of not really think about as much?
I mean, you can choose to not think about it, but at the same time, if you do that, you're going to be in for a very, very short race, unfortunately. So the thing is, depending on if you have your push points correct, essentially, if you say push someone down the back straightaway and then let off a little bit throughout the corners, or maybe just sit behind, actually, it could help out. And the thing is, if you're one of the front two drivers on either lane, really, the first, the second, the third, and well, maybe the fourth if we probably at some point get to that. But if you're the first or second driver, if you're the second driver that's pushing on that lane, well, yeah, you're definitely going to be thinking about, okay, so I can push here and then I can let off here. But if you're the third, fourth, fifth car in lane, you should just be sitting back, just watching it happen. Of course, staying on the throttle, but keeping in mind that you don't really have to add to that push if it's already happening directly in front of you. And that way you don't put anyone else at risk, including yourself and your own engine.
Well, there you go. As we watch Scott Rickard, one of the drivers, to come down here on pit lane, taking a couple of tires. They're certainly topping up a little bit on fuel, trying to go on a little bit of an alternate strategy as these guys start to weave their way, the lead pack, onto the backstretch as they're going through turn 2 right now. In all of that kerfluffle up at the front, we missed that Jamie Dobbs was able to be just a hair ahead at the flying of the yellow flag, so that's going to put him down on that preferred line, that preferred inside line, forcing Presley Sora to take the outside line. Going to really make some things interesting here. Sora, the one who's been able to dominate this race early on.
And it's a great job by Presley Sora to get out front. Both fortunately and unfortunately, Sora will be restarting on the outside lane, and based off of the initial start that we saw, it was a little bit difficult for the outside lane to get going. And while Jamie Dobbs, who was leading the outside lane initially when that lead start or when the initial start came across, well, he's out in the lead now, and he's going to be starting on the inside lane. So after seeing what happened with Presley Sora, I'm pretty sure Jamie Dobbs is very, very confident at this next restart.
I would have to be if I'm sitting in Jamie's seat right now. And as you said it, it's going to be Dobbs, Sora, Greer, Byrne, Gifford, and Nethery now lining up. That's your top 6. That's going to be those pushers. Everybody's starting to line up. All eyes now on that Mustang pace car as it dives down towards pit lane. Jamie Dobbs now in control of the field, having to wait behind that pace car. You can't overtake it as it makes its way down. Something important to notice, but that's Toyota of Dobbs getting ready to line it up. We're getting ready to go. Now all eyes on the flag stand past the tri-oval here at Talladega. getting ready, entering that restart zone right about now. Engines are going to start to rev up, and where is the point that we put the power down? It's now. And Presley Sora has got a nose ahead of Jamie Dobbs as they cross the line, trying to make that outside line work a little bit harder, but Dobbs is going to fight back and get a little bit more speed through the corner as Sora goes down a little bit, almost tries to pinch him, and then comes back up the track.
At this point, I think it's commentator's curse. The mid-pack did not get going, unfortunately, and I don't believe somebody was in the right gear. I would have to look back at that to be sure about that, but it looked like the 48 almost didn't get going, and in fact, actually, it was the 37 that didn't get going, and it caused a little bit of a stack-up effect. So, unfortunately, that mid-pack and both inside and outside lanes, as a result, have been relatively shuffled out entirely.
They truly have, and you can see it there. Just that is Dobbs pulling away from everybody with Greer behind him and Gifford and Byrne in a 1, 2, 3, 4. The only one really holding on to that outside line is Presley Sora, getting almost a little bit of a bump there from Patrick Byrne, as now they're going to go into turn 1. Sora just begging for somebody, anybody, to come back up on that outside line to give him a little bit of help as they come through turn 2.
Unfortunately for Sora, it's going to be a little bit of a hard run early on, so I don't think anybody would be willing, especially so early, to try and say, well, hey, might as well try and have this outside lane run early, but really to what purpose, aside from just leading laps? So we'll see as the 24 decides, well, I'll join up on the outside lane, so we might be seeing if anyone else would be willing to join up to the outside lane. Maybe Austin Greer at some point.
Looking like it certainly could be that way right now. The only person who looks like they may be willing to help Sora out there at all is the number 4 of Lochie Brown. One thing to note, Broderick Roa has been in the pits now for 4 consecutive laps, listed as 4 laps down, so that is effectively Roa out of the race. As Wesley Fuller now sets the fastest lap of the race from all the way back in 16th, as the rest of that pack starting to catch back up to the field a little bit. A few stragglers there you can see in the back of the screen. But look at this. That's Lochie Brown right up behind Presley Sora. Presley's found the buddy, and here we go.
Jamie Dobbs cutting it close. Not entirely sure if he should have defended the outside lane or stuck to the inside. So that little bit of hesitation can cost not only you, but the other drivers around you. So you have to be sure at SuperSpeedways on whether or not you're going to be making that move. And you see here from the 24 machine on board Brown, you see you have basically absolutely no vision, maybe through the back and front windshield if you're lucky, but in this case, and especially from this camera angle, you can't see past the car directly in front of you.
No, you can't, which just makes the ability of these guys to bump draft correctly all the more impressive. We're going to stay on board here as you see that bump draft starting to come into a little bit of effect, getting right up the side. Presley Sora and pushing Sora into what is marked as the lead here over Jamie Dobbs. And now you're going to see Lochie try to jump out to the outside. Not going to have much of it, just trying to get a little bit of that clean air, maybe trying to get a little bit of cooler engine there, as you were saying earlier, Gary.
That cool engine could play a factor as well. It gives you, of course, a little bit more time, but as well as that indecisive lane decision and essentially going for that same real estate. That's going to be costing pretty much everybody, but everyone does hang on to it as the 45 and 24 off of turn number 4 had nearly made a little bit of contact. The 91 was a little bit hesitant on moving up to the outside lane, but everyone able to keep it forward, able to keep it going, and everyone again around 190 miles per hour at maximum is what you could get to here in the draft, but everyone is at scratch at 192 now, I'm seeing the 24 machine, so absolutely just pushing that car as a 24.
Really giving him a good run there, but coming through the corners once again. That's Greer giving a good run. Really able to put Jamie Dobbs out into a commanding position here. I have to think if I'm Presley Sora that I'm wanting to try to move down to that lower lane, but ooh, they get a little slicey and dicey there, as behind them, that's the 25 of Jason Nethery starting to join into the fight here, becoming a 3-car battle up front. And that is also on the inside line. That's the 45 of Austin Greer also coming into it. So all of these guys just really starting to see where their cars can perform the best.
I want to talk about great best performing cars. just look at, well, currently the front two runners now at this point, because Presley Sora and the 98 cut it incredibly close, and probably the closest you could cut it here, from going to the outside to the inside lane. And my goodness, I'm surprised that there's still fenders attached to both the front bumper of the 91 and the back bumper of the 98. That was very, very close, but a great job by both drivers to, again, just be at least aware of their surroundings and know that, okay, well, this is happening, maybe I should back off just a little bit. But now, 91 of Jamie Dobbs not letting this lead go down without a fight, and the 24 of Lochie Brown going to be the pusher of the outside lane at this point.
He is very much just taking that roll on with enthusiasm, now getting up behind. That is the 20 up ahead there of Broderick Roa. Roa able to get back out onto track finally, but he is going to stay to the outside lane, let everybody else fly on underneath him as the leaders continue to battle here too wide through turn 3 and 4 of Talladega. Sora and Dobbs continuing to go neck and neck, but now Austin Greer in the 45 giving a good push to Presley Sora, going to be listed as second place as they cross through the tri-oval. I don't know if Dobbs is going to be able to claw it back here for second, but Sora still leading as they cross the line to start lap 15.
Just like that, we are already 15 laps complete, so we are now at 48 laps to go here at Talladega, and it's these laps, and once the race gets back going, these laps go by very, very quickly. And well, the thing is, these laps can go by quickly, but to what cost, especially for the drivers who had pit for fuel versus the ones who have not yet pit for fuel.
It's going to be interesting to see if there's any sort of strategy that will come in, if they need a yellow to make this work, and exactly how it's all going to play out. All of the leaders right now, the top 10, did not come in. Your highest ranked driver that did come in that early round of pit stops was Scott Rickard, currently sitting in 11th. That's the number 5 back in the pack. But up front, this battle remains fierce as neither the high lane nor the low lane seems to be able to press a clear advantage, with Presley Sora and Jamie Dobbs switching positions but continuing their battle as you see guys really starting to fan out there in the back.
Of course, that goes to my point, as a few drivers in the back are very, very cautious on what moves they're going to make. We see the 48 in the background. That's Kevin Newton dropping back, playing the safe route, and a little bit of a common move by drivers here in iRacing for SuperSpeedway racing is playing it safe, just going to the back and letting things happen the way they do and hope for the best. But the drivers in that third position on both the inside and outside lane, both the 82 of John Gifford, as well as what looks to be the number 25 machine of Jason Nethery, just laying back, just letting these front two runners just push the, just letting these front two runners on their respective lanes push it out. And we see from this onboard shot just how close it is and how very, very tense it is, as well as the 24 tries to stay lined up to the back bumper.
Really just pushing everything that they can here. Now, Gary, where is the point in this race that you think these guys are going to start going for broke? As you're saying, a lot of these guys just hanging back, keeping it calm as we continue to watch Presley Sora leading this race. That's Jamie Dobbs leading the high side. But when is the point that you think it is time to go for broke and put the pedal all the way to the floor?
Well, in my personal opinion, from my usual SuperSpeedway racing strategy, I guess in that case, if you could call it that, it's more of just a quick plan, but it's really waiting until the final few laps, just waiting to see, okay, well, are they going to wreck or are they not, depending, of course, where you are in the field. If you're at the front of the field, of course, I'd say go for it on the final lap, but in some cases, if you're mid-pack or in the back of the field and the laps are closing down, I really personally would not decide to push it. I just say, well, I'm going to sit back here, ride in the back, let everyone do what they're going to do, and if I don't get the position I wanted, well, it happens. It was either going to go that way or the worst way of not being able to finish at all.
Well, and that non-finish, always a heartbreak. And Gary, I have to agree with you. I know that sitting in the back and waiting for people to wreck up front, that's how I picked up my second and third oval win on iRacing. So certainly a good strategy if you are a beginner like me a little bit. As we continue to watch here, though, Dobbs and Sora just absolutely not giving an inch. But no, here as I say it, that is Jamie Dobbs cutting down to the low side in front of Presley Sora. That's going to leave Lochie Brown alone up on that top side, and that's going to open up 25, Jason Nethery, is going to now be the pusher on the top side.
Saying a lone driver, the 4 of Stephen Carlisle. Unfortunately, the lone driver very much with no help on the very top side, and he will be, unfortunately, incredibly quickly falling back to at least mid-pack by the looks of it. He'll fall back now to what's about 11th place, 12th place. So, again, a little bit of maybe practice in some cases to see what what the draft can do later on. And of course, well, someone who's very eager in trying that out is the 98 Presley Soar, who says, well, what you can do, I can do better because I qualify in the first place position. So have at it. It's basically what Presley Soar is saying to Jamie Dobbs, and Jamie Dobbs moves up to the outside on the back straightaway.
They're starting to get a little chippy here at Talladega, and it's proven to be some good action as they now go back. You said it right on the head. Jamie Dobbs on the outside, ahead by a hair. Presley Sora able to overtake going into 3. Sora having that preferred inside line as they work their way out of turn 4 now, transitioning into the banking of the tri-oval. That's going to be Sora. Nobody getting a mega push here, but that is Lochie Brown able to give a little bit of a push to the 91 of Jamie Dobbs. Going to hopefully try to repeat that move of getting ahead going into turn 1.
That head of steam will greatly work out, but the 91 of Dobbs is not clear. So unfortunately, he'll be having to wait for that run down the back straightaway and just watch as the 45 and 98 pull away very, very slowly. You saw the 45 peak down to the apron, of course, and, well, there's also that little bit of about car width, just about, in between these 2 lanes. And that could help that second driver on the inside lane. Either, of course, even I've done from personal experience, you either run the apron just for a quick moment, you back off the car you're pushing, you run the apron just for a quick moment to cool the engine down, and then you quickly move right back behind that driver, or you peek up to the outside just like the 45 does in the tri-oval to cool down that engine, lay off, and then try to push again. But unfortunately for the 45, it seems to be a cooling lap in a way, as the 91 is out front, but he wants to take the 24 with him.
Interesting move not to dive down to the low line. That's going to give the advantage, I think, back to Presley Soar. They're going to be neck and neck again. You see those guys just kind of bobbing and weaving, as you were saying there, Gary, trying to cool the engines a little bit, make sure that everything stays nice and even. The majority of these cars coming through the corner looking like they're trying to go down onto the low line. That's where the majority of the pack is. The brave ones running on the high side. Only about 6 cars running that high line right now. But the leader of that, Jamie Dobbs, is going to be having good momentum here coming into the tri-oval as they make their way through the banking, through past these grandstands and past the pits. That's going to be Dobbs having just a nose to lead lap 22. Not enough to get ahead here, but he's got a little bit of an advantage, but wanting to stick on that high side.
24 is coming very close to pushing off center, and that is the worst possible thing that could happen. And just in time, as they come off of turn number 2, down the back straightaway, Brown gets square on that back bumper of Dobbs and will shove him down the back straightaway into turns 3 and 4. But again, that inside lane with that advantage, not only from being, of course, on the inside lane, but from the fact that the 24 may have to be cooling his engine quite a significant amount, judging by how fast the outside lane is falling. Well, that's going to be the key thing, and I think as the 82 just comes up, a little bit hesitant, not sure what to do. Now it's John Gifford on the outside lane, and definitely taking a huge load off the engine of that number 24 machine. And John Gifford is saying, okay, well, I've been staying back here for about 24 laps. It's my turn to try and make a run for the lead.
Good move from Gifford. Definitely nice to see somebody else do it. I also have to imagine, though, if I'm Jamie Dobbs, I'm going to be a little angry, and you can see it there. Dobbs trying to dive to the middle of those 2 packs. I don't think that's an engine cooling issue. That's an anger issue. He wants to get back into the lead, Gary.
Yeah, I'm definitely not surprised. Unfortunately, with the outside lane being so disorganized at the moment, they're not really sure what to do, and unfortunately, it is heavily costing them now. And I think, yeah, not Presley Soar, correction, Jamie Dobbs at 24, everyone goes to the outside lane, and, well, we see essentially in some cases of SuperSpeedway racing, well, some people have different plans, and, well, it's going to be 3 different plans all happening at once here by the looks of it. if the 77 may be letting the 37 in line, Stephen Brown, or Stephen Brown rather, will be in that middle lane now. And well, at this point, all is said and done. The outside lane for now has absolutely no chance of challenging for the lead until after pit stops, which could be coming soon, DJ.
They could. We're probably 2 or 3 laps away from that. As you see there, the 77 of Octavio Rondoletto moving into that outside lane. Now, he is the highest runner of any of your early pit stoppers, so he is one to watch here as he may be able to eke out a few more laps than everybody else. That strategy starting to work out for him potentially as he's got the 37 of Stephen Brown behind him to maybe try to give him a push, but nothing doing there. As you look to the outside, though, that is Jamie Dobbs and Lochie Brown. Once again, the band is back together trying to push on that super high side. As there you see the 77 Rondoletto pushing up a little bit. Everybody's staying nice and orderly, though. A couple of guys ducking out trying to cool those engines.
Now looks to be the 05 dropping to the back. That is Scott Ricard, and possibly just trying to say, okay, this is getting a bit much for me. I'm going to play it safe. I'm going to ride in the back, and he safely navigates his way to the back of the field, and the inside lane, or the outside lane, now becomes once again the well, less outside lane. And well, like you mentioned, DJ, actually, is the fact that the 77 did pit early. This could help him out if he does want to pit with any of the early stoppers with 20 laps to go, because at that point, you know, for even the drivers who have not yet pit, they're on 27 laps now, so they can just somehow split in half. They should be able to make it, but drivers that stopped early, well, they know they can make it for sure.
Most certainly, as now you see them coming down the backstretch. We're going to ride on board with Jamie Dobbs here, back up to that familiar position of challenging Presley Sora's lead for the outside. And challenge, he's not going to challenge, he's going to take it as they go into turn 3. Have the advantage, gets a little bit of his elbows out there, pushing Sora down onto the line, but Sora is going to hold that down line. Going to have the advantage coming out of 4 into the tri-oval here. They're going to see what they can do. Nobody making the dive for pit lane quite yet, but Jamie Dobbs trying to push the advantage with Lochie Brown right behind, getting a big push here across the line. Leads to start lap 28. Is he going to make a dive down? No, they're going to stay in file 1-2.
This is now the halfway point of the race, so drivers now at this point know that maybe they can make it to the end, but the thing is, with that first caution, it did help them save and stretch out that fuel, so that first caution could play a huge factor into that fuel management for this second half of the race. So some drivers may make it, some drivers may not make it, and that's something we'll not be sure of, even ourselves, until we come down to the final laps. Does anyone go to pit road, though? Not quite yet. I see some drivers having their tires on the yellow line, though, so I'm pretty sure some wanted to, but no one decided to yet.
No one decided to, as it looks like Dobbs is going to be a little farther back this time around. The 45 of Austin Greer getting a nice little bump draft to Presley Sora. You see him move up the track there, try to cool that engine a little bit, as now they're going to be side by side pretty much coming through these turns here onto the back stretch. The 24 backing off, getting a little bit of fresh air into that engine. They're going to go down the back stretch here. Everybody Noah's Ark style, 2x2x2. Nothing between Sora and Dobbs, though, as they dive into turn 3.
Although the 25 has completely different plans, tries to shoot it to the outside, is Jason Nethery, but as quickly as he tried to make it work, it doesn't, and he falls right back in line where he was when he started. And again, some drivers, you see them they're eager to go to pit road, but they don't want to. And I think just from the way that their movements are, they're trying to run more laps. And of course, well, the more laps they run on this one stint, the less they have to worry about in the next one. So this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to stretch it out. They now have at least coming to the start-finish line next time by 24 laps left. And, well, I think at this point, maybe they made up for how much fuel they had saved under caution. Now this is the point where we wonder, well, who's willing to make the first move?
Who's willing to make the first move and put themselves into that danger zone that you so often hear about, drivers going in a yellow, coming out and getting them put a lap down. Obviously at Talladega, though, a much longer lap time, so not nearly as much as a worry as if these guys were running on a short track like Martinsville. But here they come, coming by the tri-oval. Nobody going to bite this lap. Everybody thinking they're going to keep staying. So anytime we talk about pit strategy, Gary, they're just going to keep going. Is now Jamie Dobbs has a big run here over Presley Sora. I think they're going to try to maybe cut down on him. No, going to choose to keep running that high line, not choosing to dive down and make the cut.
I think that's me was wondering, do I go down by myself or do I take the 24 with me to the inside lane and try and give him at least a little bit of a break on running the top side? But when you've worked with someone essentially throughout, well, at this point, half of the race, that's the thing. You start to become a little bit considerate of some other people that you've been working with throughout the portion of the race. Even if you didn't plan to, you wonder, well, maybe I should probably help somebody out at least this one time. And, well, no one is helping out by going, helping themselves out by going to pit road yet, but, well, maybe they know something we don't. They're probably trying at this point now to get to the final 20 laps to go, so they're incredibly sure, yeah, we can make it full force.
Well, if you can make it on that tank of fuel, I think it'll be certainly helpful, and obviously less fuel to put into the tank when you get to that point. But I have to imagine they're going to be putting 4 tires on the car when they do, as they come down the back stretch here. Same order that you've been seeing these laps in and laps out. Jamie Dobbs, Presley Sora, nothing between them down the back stretch. You see those drivers poking in, poking out, cooling those engines, trying to find absolutely anything to get happening here. But no matter what they do, the only 2 lanes that seem to be working are those 2 lower lanes, and the only 2 drivers to be able to seem to stay in the front are Presley Sora and Jamie Dobbs.
You mentioned, of course, tires. Well, normally I would be saying, well, it's a super speedway. You'd probably just take right side tires or maybe even no tires and just get back going. But considering the track temperature is about 113 degrees Fahrenheit, well, that's a little bit of a different story, is the key thing. So we'll see if drivers do decide to take tires, but even if it was me, I would say, well, I'd probably still even go by that same line of thought, is that, well, it's a super speedway, maybe right side tires, maybe not. Either way, I'm definitely getting fuel regardless. And right now you see just how close that 45 is to the back bumper, laying off through the corners, just like something I mentioned earlier.
Exactly, they're reading your mind, Gary, and something that may be influencing these guys' decisions to start thinking about the pit lane. They are coming up on the slower drivers here. Drew Bernardi, William Kazuka, Zachary Bozanich, David Westergreen, these guys that have all been running in the back here. They are only about 5 seconds up the road, and the last thing you want to do if you're having this tight of a battle is to run into lap traffic. Woo, little bit of squiggliness in the back there. Everybody able to keep it together, but I thought for sure we were going to get a crash.
I was going to ask the proverbial question, well, who decides to come to pit road this time? Will it be this time by? Will it be next time by? Does anyone even want to go to pit road is the question, because that decision will have to be made at some point, and at some point might be now, considering we're coming to 20 laps to go at the start-finish line. Thundering off of turn number 4, still no move, and I'm wondering at this point, might as well just make a bet, say like $5 and say, well, we probably won't pit at all at this point.
They might not, but we'll have to see it. These guys continue to keep going along as they've now pulled within 4 seconds of those lap traffic and lap cars in front of them. Oh, big move there from Lochie Brown. Thought he was going to get a little bit out of shape, but able to pull it back together. Octavio Renando right behind him, able to do it in the back. You can see a little bit of fanning out, but that's a massive advantage from Presley Sora, about a full car's width, able to get ahead of Jamie Dobbs as they dive into this corner.
Off of turn number 2 there, yeah, the 45 and 24 both kind of went for the same real estate, not intentionally, just a little bit of drifting that usually happens, drifting into another lane, and then the 24 heavily reacted to the opposite direction, knew he was clear, of course, and, well, luckily it played out into everyone being A-okay, but drivers who are not entirely, well, A-okay in this case are these drivers that the leaders are absolutely bearing down on. We're all going the inside lane. Jamie Dobbs continues to try and get out front, and the lap cars saying over the radio to their teams, well, it would be nice if we could have a caution now, but at this point, that may not be the case.
No, in this special event here tonight, no competition cautions will be thrown, as there you see Drew Bernardi going down onto the apron, getting down onto the way as though, That got very interesting for Nicholas Reese as he tried to cool his engine down by going to the apron. I thought for sure he was going to do it, but I think that may be Nicholas Reese indicating he's going to be the first one to dive into the pits, unless I'm mistaken, and he just chooses to mess with me here. Yes, he's just messing with me. He is not diving into the pits.
I think they're all just messing with us intentionally at this point. We all thought that it would be a little bit of a short run, but maybe we were mistaken, and sometimes it does happen, but these cars are, and these drivers are having an incredible race regardless of pit strategy or not. So again, lap cars staying up on the very top side, being very sportsmanlike, making sure that they're well out of the way of the battle for the lead. And that battle for the lead, well, will it be the front two runners? Can the 24 just cut down? He's able to. It's going to be very close. Oh my gosh, that is the closest thing that I have seen to what should have been a wreck, but somehow wasn't, moving at about 185 miles per hour.
Absolute guts of steel there from Lochie Brown, not wanting to leave his buddy Jamie Dobbs in the dust. And now Presley Sora going to move out to the outside, hoping to get a little bit of a draft here back from behind of Octavio Rondoletto. They're going to try to go now work the outside, but we've seen time and time again that Dobbs and Brown really able to work together in tandem now, both on the low line. That's the first time they've both been down there this race, so we'll have to see what this pairing can do.
And that almost went terribly, and the 45 in reaction actually moves down to the apron, tries to come back up safely, and moves to the back, and that was in reaction to what just happened. My goodness, the 24 nearly hooked the 91 around, and I'm pretty sure he's about 45, well, not even 45, maybe 25 degrees sideways down that back straightaway, somehow hung on to it. And well, I was going to say before that happened is that, well, you mentioned the 24 and 91 working together. I was going to say the 45 and 98 of Sora were broken up in separate lanes, and maybe Sora wanted the 45 to work with them, but unfortunately, well, that is not going to be happening this time, and it looks like over the radio that drivers are going to finally be coming into pit road, coming to 15 laps to go.
All right, that makes these commentators feel a little bit better about the fact that we were calling that. Is now it's Octavio Rondoletto up on the outside line, getting a nice little push there from the 82 of John Gifford, or excuse me, not the 82, the 35 of Wesley Fuller. John Gifford there behind him. And there you see finally drivers starting to pull off. That's the 91 of, that's Brown. So I see Sora coming in. I see Dobbs, pretty much all the leaders coming in here.
That's a huge majority of the leaders, and well, it's easier to tell you who stayed out. The drivers in the top six. That's basically the easiest way that we can describe this. So 39 laps in for the leaders, as I think Brown had to back up just a little bit. Left or right side tires are up on some of these cars, and that's going to be a key thing to wonder. Does the left sides go up on the 24? Does not look to be so. So it's either right sides in fuel or no tires in fuel for these drivers. And well, we see coming out of pit road, the 45 sneaking his way through the front of the pack.
Very surprising there. He got a great jump there, the 45 of Austin Greer. So definitely something to prove, and really drove a fantastic way off of the line. So we're going to have to see what happens. And now we want to also check back up on these leaders, Wesley Fuller, Octavio Rondoletto, John Gifford, Scott Rickard, as they all jump to pit lane.
And Brent Jones as well joining that party of pit stops. And back to the point that I was trying to make, about 39 laps to about 40 laps is the maximum amount of time that these drivers could stay out, especially in the draft. There is one car that stayed out. It's actually a spin, over on the back straightaway on the apron. That's the 37 of Stephen Brown, and I think he actually, Stephen Brown had a very shaky exit through that initial group that went to pit road.
They did, and there you can see them starting to work their way. The guys who just came from pit lane now working their way out of this turn. So it's going to be a race down the backstretch here to see who played this strategy right. You see the 45 of Austin Greer and Jamie Dobbs leading this pack. It looks like for the moment, Octavio Rondaletto, Scott Rickard, and Emmanuel Lopez, those guys who chose to stay out, that pack of three, they've been able to pull out about a 2.5-second advantage. Obviously, still getting up to a little bit of speed here. You can see them on your screen, but it's gonna be close when everything is said and done.
I don't believe, if I am looking at this correctly, yes, Wesley Fuller was one of the drivers that decided to stay out early and not go to pit road, or went to pit road earlier on, I should say, in that number 35 machine. So the 35 of Fuller in the lead, so that 77 is actually in second place.
Yeah, driving a great one there. But as we watch here, this little clump of three, that's Octavio Rondaletto. We haven't talked a lot about him today in the 77, the 5 of Scott Rickard, and the 11 of Emmanuel Lopez. They are your effective leaders, as Fuller is listed as the leader but has not pitted yet. So we're going to stay here and watch, and you can just see behind them that pack coming on, led by Jamie Dobbs.
This massive amount of cars just bearing down on the small 3-car group. And of course, if it wasn't obvious enough that the amount of cars in the line matters enough, well, here it is right here for that second place position. And coming around to the outside lane is Jamie Dobbs with help from the 45, who was able to recover after having a little bit of a reaction scare in the sense on the back straightaway just a few laps ago. And just like that, the 91 of Jamie Dobbs back out front once again.
Dobbs just not to be denied here today. And we kind of lost this in all of the excitement of this pit stop. You can see as they go through, you can see him sweeping there, sweeping, which is like swerving, there in the background. Presley Sora down in 10th place, the early leader of this race. So there's a lot of room to make up here with only about 11 laps to go. It's now go time, I think, Gary.
Very much is time to get going up to that front, but well, the thing is, how late can you make a move? Sometimes it's within the final lap, sometimes it's with 2 laps to go, maybe in the 5 laps, maybe in the final, maybe even in the final 10 laps at the start-finish line next time around. It's something that we'll have to see. Wesley Fuller now on the 39th lap, and we'll see if that 35 does decide to come to pit road. And it sounds like over the radio that the 35 of Fuller is coming to pit road, but I don't think he'll really have any help.
And great shot there from both Dougie Beard and Sean Ambrose, our guys behind the booth. As you could see, Presley Sora starting to work on that outside line, getting a nice push from the 78. Really starting to press the advantage. This is where this gets fun. That's the 78 of Kevin Kittleman. They're working on that high side. That's going to be Dobbs on the middle line and Octavio Rondaletto on the low line. Finally, we have 3 wide, but now Sora is left out on the high line, nowhere to go. He's going to fall back a little bit, but gets a decent run trying to make a move on the 24 there of Lochie Brown. But once again, no help for Sora, and that's going to leave the lead up to Octavio Rondaletto as they go into the turn.
Side by side they go. A great defense by that number 77, who's just sitting in the top 5 throughout this entire first portion of the race. And well, believe it or not, as they come down the tri-oval exit, Wesley Fuller, the proverbial leader, will get that lead taken away at the start-finish line. There he is on pit exit, and your new leader now, the 91 again of Jamie Dobbs, who is still continuing to not give up this fight. Presley Sora, however, is going to need a lot of help to get back out front as he goes on this lonesome to that third lane.
He was doing that for a little bit on those last laps. It wasn't working, but he's got a little bit of a run here, but he needs somebody to jump up and help him on that high side. But meanwhile, up front, that's Rondaletto really making good moves here, getting a nice little push from the 45 there. I think that's the 45 of Austin Greer. Or excuse me, that's Scott Rickard in the 5. Austin Greer on the outside, pushing Jamie Dobbs as they go side by side. In front of them, you see a little bit of lap traffic being nice and getting out of the way. That's Drew Bernardi. Everybody's going to be nice and orderly as they come through the tri-oval.
As they continue to make the rounds and as the laps continue to tick down, more and more the action continues to heat up, and some drivers may be getting a little bit more desperate on trying to get up front, and I wouldn't be surprised if Presley Sora was one of those drivers, especially with having led the lead or having led the race a huge majority of the time. But unfortunately, that 24 machine, correction, that 45 machine has completely different ideas. As they go 3 wide for the lead, Sora somehow on his own challenging for the lead.
Sora losing a lot of momentum through the corners there. He had a little bit of a help for a half a second from the 11 of Emmanuel Lopez, but Lopez dove back down to the inside. The 45 now of Austin Greer leading that low line pack. Rondoletto having a little bit of a shuffle back as you saw Dobbs moving and changing lanes there. The 78 of Kevin Kittleman now directly behind Dobbs, giving him that nice little shove as the 45 and the 91 go into turn 1, trying to figure out who's going to be able to take the lead, and we've got a crash behind. That's the 11, and I believe the 77, that's Rondoletto, and that is Emmanuel Lopez, as we have a yellow coming out here on lap 48.
The second caution of the day. Luckily, another minor accident by the looks of it. A quick spin. And again, just like that, is now 2 cautions. And this is going to be very, very intense as we take a look at the replay. A little bit of a bobble, and then unfortunately, it's just a little bit of a squeeze down, and well, nothing too major. Everyone does manage to keep going as well, but since the spin, of course, was above the yellow line on the racing surface, the caution was thrown.
We're
going
going
on
to
board here. Yeah, go ahead, DJ.
I was just going to say, we're going to jump back here on board with the 72. You can see everything happening in front of them. Oh, that's a fun ride.
See, I think that's more the equivalent of having a little bit of a Sunday drive and then just seeing that happen right beside you, and you're wondering, wait, where'd that come from? And then you're wondering, and then you start to realize, oh, wait, this is happening in front of me now. I should probably slow down just a bit. So a little bit of an interesting view by Applebaum. Unfortunately, 2 laps down, but of course still able to continue running.
Very much so, and very heads-up driving from Applebaum to be able to not get caught up in that. So now, Gary, as we come in here, as the field starts to pace up behind that iRacing Mustang pace car, what becomes the strategy here? What can these guys do in the back to really try to get a run off of this restart? What can the leaders do to try to hold behind?
Really, the drivers in the back in some cases, well, we'll see. It's a lot to think about, especially with the drivers in the back. Well, really, there's not much you could do. You can try and form a third lane, but at to what cost? For drivers in the front, well, really just run your race and hope the person behind you is, willing to push you and not try and move up to the outside lane.
That'll have to be an interesting one to see. Is just a note, you could see some of the guys peeling off in the back there. That is Rondoletto, as well as Rickard, and I believe Adam Sweet, a bunch of the guys that were coming off into the pits, just trying to do something, anything, to be able to try to get an advantage out as we get into these final laps. At least 2 to go here at the line, at least potentially 1 to go at the line, as the lights are still on this pace car. We're going to have to see if anybody's got an answer for Jamie Dobbs, although Austin Greer listed as in the lead, so kudos to him for finally being able to take that away. And does Presley Sora right now, all the way back in 5th place, is there any answer out of that 98 car to charge forward?
Now, considering that Presley Sora is still in line to race for this win, and again, qualified first, had led the first half of the race, well, I'm pretty sure that the 98 is not quite done fighting for the lead just yet. However, it could be a very intense 3-lap shootout here.
Very intense indeed, and this is the kind of thing that makes Talladega so special, is these absolute blasts to the finish. Seeing some of the lap cars getting the wave around there. Applebaum, one of them, the terrified driver that we rode on board with during that crash, as they're going to work their way here through turn 3. Everybody watching the lights of the pace car, hoping we're going to get the 1 to go signal here. Any dark horses that you're thinking about watching here, Gary, that could jump up and surprise us here?
Well, there's, of course, one driver's name that actually stands out to me right now. That is the number 78 of Kevin Kittleman, who started 23rd and somehow not only is on the same strategy as these lead cars, but he's also, again, start 2030s up in 4th place. I'm pretty sure it could be Kevin Kittleman just poofing in just randomly. So I'm pretty sure that 78 looking to definitely make a name for himself here in these final 3 laps when we go back to green flag racing.
We'll have to certainly keep our eyes on that white, green, purple, and black Toyota as they do come here crossing the start-finish line. Everybody forming up, and yes, indeed, there go the lights. We are going to be 1 to go at the line for a 3-lap shootout at Talladega. Gary, this is what stories are written about. This is why we love NASCAR. It's moments like this.
Not only that as well, it's some drivers like Kevin Kittleman, where you start midfield, maybe sometimes you're at the back of the field, sometimes in the case of Kittleman, second to last in the field, and then coming across the line to either get so much as a top 5, a top 10, maybe even a podium position. And the best thing, of course, that anyone could really ask for is that always great checkered flag.
Oh, that's always the goal. And the number one thing you want to see is you see there Austin Greer, your leader, just shaking that car around a little bit, trying to get some heat in those tires. And just a quick note, though, we have had a little bit of a cool off here. It is only 104 degrees on the track right now. So obviously tire wear, not too much of a factor with only 3 laps to go, but it may help the grip levels on these last 3 laps.
Yeah, a little bit cooler temperatures could help out some of these drivers make maybe a bit more daring moves. And of course, right when you say it's 104, well, it jumps up just that 1 degree to 105. But well, with these final 3 laps, DJ, I'm quite excited. And like you mentioned, that dark horse, I'm going to be keeping an eye on Kevin Kittleman. But that's also not to count out the 45 of Austin Greer and the 91 of Jamie Dobbs, who's been the most prevailing challenger. And the same goes for the 24 of Lochie Brown.
It most certainly is. And now all eyes turning on the final moments to that iRacing pace car. That Mustang diving down below the yellow line. Austin Greer here obviously having to stay behind it until it fully ducks off into the pits, at which point he will control the field. There you see it goes off the leader. Everyone waiting to enter into that restart zone. You can see there Lochie Brown really starting to get right up behind his bumper, trying to see if there's anything doing, waiting for the green flag now, watching the flag stand. And there it is. We are green with 3 laps to go here at Talladega. Great start there from Austin Greer and Jamie Dobbs as they're going to go in, and we've got a wreck behind. That's the 78, and there are several cars spinning out.
Fortunately, the 78 of Kevin Kittleman, I think it may have seemed he accidentally downshifted. Its engine definitely did blow up. No green-white checker attempts by the looks of it just yet. We'll wait and see, of course, but the 78 of Kittleman's engine had exploded on the replay.
On behalf of GSRC, we do apologize for the commentator's curse there, as it has been known to happen. Heartbreak there for Kittleman, who had drove such a great race. And now you're going to be sitting, so you can see him there in the pits getting ready. And we're going to watch the replay, Gary.
Yeah, everyone, of course, does go scrambling, trying to get to the outside lane. That's fine, but you see the 78, his engine just blows. I think the best shot would be on board to hear the engine because he tries to get it going, but unfortunately, he just doesn't.
We're going to be on board here with Kittleman. You can see in that. Yep, he was absolutely redlining it.
Mistake in downshift, unfortunately. Yeah, that's quite just quite a disappointment, unfortunately. And we do have, yes, one of now 3 green-white checkered attempts that are being shown by the service. So this race, of course, is not yet over.
So for those green-white checkers, we will have a chance to get a good green flag finish here. Everybody hoping for it. Don't want to see a repeat of that last restart, as there was, even outside of Kittleman, a little bit of bumping and shoving there in the back. But Gary, how do you as a driver get back into the mentality on this after you've gotten yourself psyched up, 3 to go, we're ready to do it, let's rock and roll. And then to have that happen and have to reset, how do you get back into the right mentality?
Well, of course, there's going to be, luckily, at least that's what the caution is for, in a sense, is that it gives you time to, it gives you time to get rid of that disappointment and realize, okay, there's still the rest of the race to go. It's not quite over. So, of course, you just have to focus just like you did on that last restart. And in some cases, if you're Jamie Dobbs, you hope, well, maybe. In some cases, you might want to hope that, of course, it would go through all three green white checkers. But at the same time, if you're Jamie Dobbs, well, or the leader in general, it's a mix. You either want to end as soon as possible, or you want to end and just get yourself essentially what could be an easy win.
I think if I was sitting in Jamie Dobbs' shoes, I would much prefer no green white checker attempts and just let this thing come to flag. But that is one thing to make a note here is on that restart, Dobbs was able to get ahead of Greer. So that's going to put him down on what we assume will be that preferred lower line. Greer to the top, Lochie Brown going to be down on the low line with him. And oh, hey, here's Presley Sora going to be starting on the outside of row 2. So that is Sora making those moves up at the start, already starting to poke the nose into competition and potential here to get on the podium, if not a win.
And that, of course, potential to get on the podium would be great for Sora, but again, with the battle that he's been having with Jamie Dobbs throughout this entire event, he wants to get back up to first place because he had an incredible run. But ever since that second restart that we had, that first caution when Sora was on the outside, unfortunately, he was there. He's still been in the top 5. Unfortunately, he just didn't have that preferred lane, and since then, he's been kind of caught out ever since.
He has, but I think here he's going to be looking to do something. Maybe he can get a little bit of a pull behind from one of the gents sitting in behind him. Maybe a Wesley Fuller or Octavio Rondoletto is going to be the guys to maybe jump out and make that third line finally start to happen here as they make their way out of that final turn and into the tri-oval, waiting here for the 1 to go signal at the line, and that will obviously be a green-white checker attempt. So we are going to hope that we can get a absolutely fantastic finish to the race here for all you folks here tonight.
There are 2 more attempts if need be, but in some cases, sometimes, well, it either goes through 1, all 3, or, well, sometimes it goes right down to the actual end. So we'll see exactly what happens here on this next restart. And if anyone's willing to try and jump out to the outside again, we kind of saw that bit of a scramble as well on that previous restart. Everyone moving up to the outside lane to get an advantage. And we'll wonder if that will be the exact same, almost a carbon copy of that last restart, minus, of course, someone blowing the engine as the lights do go out.
Lights are out in the field, starts to form up. Jamie Dobbs taking the expected preferred inside line. That's going to put Austin Greer to his outside. Lochie Brown going to be in third on the inside with Presley Sora lining up to the outside there. The inside in the 5th position in that third row is going to be the 35 of Wesley Fuller. And then lining up behind him will be, or to the outside of him rather, will be that 89 of Brent Jones. That is your top 6. It's going to be interesting to see, as you said, Gary, who hops out to the top side, see if anybody tries to make anything super aggressive here happen. We've got 2.66 miles around this place, and just about anything can go down.
Of course, don't count out the driver in 7th place, being, of course, the 77 that we've seen earlier, who was in 2nd place and then leading for quite a little bit in a sense. And, of course, that is Octavio Rondon. Well, I won't be able to pronounce it, unfortunately. DJ's more than me, but that 77 machine, another driver to keep an eye on. Granted, he's not in the top 5 or the top 6, but he's still technically in SuperSpeedway terms within winning range, provided, the worst happens and the top 6 somehow clean themselves out. But let's hope that's not the case, and the 77 could just sneak his way up through the field, maybe get those extra 2 positions and get a top 5.
I think it's certainly not out of the realm of possibility, as now everybody making their way out of that final turn. The pace car once again going to turn down. Dobbs having a little bit of an advantage here. I think Greer maybe wanting to just keep an eye on him or maybe dive down. A little bit of a bold strategy there for him, as now all eyes turn to the flag stand, watching, waiting for that green. Greer still behind as we enter into the restart zone, and waiting for the green, and the green flag at Talladega waves, and here they go. Jamie Dobbs going to lead at the line. Austin Greer chose to lay back in that top lane to see what would happen. Everybody through that first corner okay, and here they go into one.
Look at that. Presley Sora pushing the 45 of Austin Greer, returning the favor just as the 45 had done throughout the first half of the race. The 24 pushing the 91 on the inside lane, but with this gap that they have, it's going to allow them to get caught by the rest of the field here as they go down into turn 3.
They need that help from behind, but I have to say that was a great move from Greer to try to get it. But right now it looks like that Jamie Dobbs and Lochie Brown are going to be that high pair. That's the 85 in the back shot there. That is trying to make something happen on the outside. Nothing happening, and they're going to go back into 2-lane. Nobody breaking out of that. Jamie Dobbs ahead by a car length. Austin Greer trying to get something happening on that high side. Octavio Rondinetto now able to move it, and here is the white flag. We have got it. This will end it, ladies and gentlemen, as now Greer has a good run coming into one.
No matter what happens, if they all wreck, they'll still finish under green, and it's a matter of who gets to the line first at this point. A great run by the 45 of Greer, who decides to stay up on the outside lane. Will he move down to the inside in turn 3 and 4 and protect that inside lane? Remember the tri-oval as well.
And that's Sora seesawing back and forth. I'd be a little bit worried about that. As you see here, that's Dobbs making a higher line off the corner, trying to get down to that apex a little bit faster. Dobbs is going to have the advantage. They're going to come into the tri-oval. Here they go. They're spinning behind. That's taking guys out, but Dobbs is going to lead to the line. It's going to be a battle for second by the looks of it. I think Dobbs has got this in the bag. Greer and Brown side by side is more wreck behind, and it's going to be Dobbs, Brown, Greer, Rondinetto at the line.
What a absolutely incredible finish off of turn number 4, and just like in SuperSpeedway fashion, Dobbs, Brown, and Greer all coming to the start-finish line. The last 3 to make it to the end, as they had crashed, but an incredible race regardless throughout this entire field.
Absolutely great run, and Talladega, as it is proven to do time and time again, never fails to excite. There is your winner, ladies and gentlemen. The Hoosier driver, Jamie Dobbs, brings that 91 around one last time on a victory lap as he wins the Breast Cancer Awareness 150 here at Talladega.
Massive congratulations to the 91, and while even though Presley Sora unfortunately was taken out in that final crash off turn 4, a great job to him. Props to him for battling with the 91 throughout the early portions of this race.
As you see here, Dobbs starting to do some donuts. We're going to jump back to a GSRC replay and just watch the pandemonium that broke out as these cars crossed over the line. And Gary, walk us through what happened here as these cars came out of the final turn and went through the tri-oval.
I mean, that's when we have to go all the way back to turn 2, and I'm not surprised considering on what just transpired, because we had about 2 separate wrecks, and well, this is of course going to be the first, and we see right here the 45 of Greer out in front, wanted to move down, I'm sure, but decided, well, you know what, I want to be sportsmanlike, I'm going to take the 98 of Sora with me, and then everyone decides to fan out, and just as they come off turn number 4, a little bit of contact is made by trying to sneak through the middle, and unfortunately it just collects relatively everybody, and then it's just a little bit more as they come to the start finish line. The 48 just slipping by. The guy's front nose chopped off from that, but what a race in general. What a finish.
What a finish indeed. Exactly what you'd expect here at the Big Beast in Alabama. we are going to jump to a quick replay, but don't anybody go, or a quick break rather, excuse me, but don't anybody go anywhere, as we will be back with podium interviews and our closing thoughts here on the Global Sim Racing Channel. Welcome back here to Talladega. You just saw that incredible race pan out before your eyes, and we're going to run you through the finishing order as Jamie Dobbs able to take the race win in spectacular fashion, closely followed by Lochie Brown and Austin Greer. Gavin Newton able to take away that fourth place position, followed by Octavio Rondoletto, Drew Bernardi, Nicholas Reese, Stephen Carlisle, Wesley Fuller, and Adam Sweet rounding out your top 10.
Finishing in 11th place is 22 of David Westergreen. Emmanuel Lopez rounds out 12th place. 13th place is Scott Ricard. Brent Jones finishes 14th. Presley Sora, heartbreak for himself as he started in the lead. Unfortunately, was collected in that final corner crash on the last lap, although had a great battle with a 91. Sora finishes 15th. 16th is Patrick Byrne. Lee Applebaum finishes in 17th. Jason Nethery 18th. Stephen Brown and Kevin Killiman finished 19th and 20th, respectively. And the last four drivers are Zachary Balzanik, John Gifford, William Kruska, and Bodrick Roa, rounding out the 24-car field that we had here for this afternoon.
And I am here in booth with our second place finisher, Lochie Brown. Amazing run out there for you. Kind of a crazy finish behind you. Walk us through that race.
Yeah, it was a really good run. We all the Indy Autosport guys got linked up pretty early and pushed their way towards the front. I was behind Jamie pretty much the entire race there, battling with Presley. Yeah, that end was wild. I got barely through the first wreck to bring out the green-white checkered, and not sure what quite happened there coming to the line.
Yeah, it just kind of looked like it was a series of unfortunate events behind you, but it looked like you guys were really trying to get down to the low line, at least early. That's what it seemed a lot of guys were doing, but then the high line is what came in later. What were you finding speed on there?
The low line was better through the corners because it's short distance, but you get a awesome run off the high line down the straights. Pretty much you'd gain all the time you lost in the corners plus more if you're on the high line.
Gotcha. Well, just an amazing run from everybody out there tonight. Before we let you go, anybody you need to thank?
Sorry, I didn't get that. My internet's playing up.
No, it's
Australian
all good.
internet.
You're all good, my friend. I was just going to say, are there any shout-outs or anybody you need to thank tonight?
Yeah, just want to shout out to Indy Autosport. I've joined the team about a month ago. They've been really great with me, helped me improve my racing a lot. Wasn't really a big oval guy earlier in the year, but I've gotten into it a lot the last few months. And just shout out to the sponsors, Max Fast and SimRace Coin for sponsoring the team.
Well, congratulations again on a well-deserved second place, and thank you for putting on one heck of a show for us tonight.
Yeah, no worries. Just on behalf of Jamie as well, he doesn't have a mic. Just want to thank everyone for a good race. So you had a hell of a lot of fun. So.
Well, it was a heck of a lot of fun to commentate. Thanks again. And now, my partner Gary has got our second place finisher, Austin Greer.
And here with the number 40 driver of the number 45 machine. And Austin, you were up in the top 5 and the top 10 throughout pretty much the entire race, and rarely dipped out, if at all. So coming to that start finish line, you were leading down the back straightaway on the white flag. What was going through your mind? Because we noticed that you decided to stay up top on the outside lane, and by the looks of it, we'd assumed that you wanted to take Presley Sora with you to the inside lane.
Yeah. Me and Presley, he contacted me before that final green flag run. He's like, I'll push you. You just stick with me. And I was like, all right. I pushed him for most of the race. So I was like, I'll stick with him on the high side. And coming down that back stretch, I knew I had the inside line clear. But I was like, no, I ain't going to let that happen to Presley. Just leave him out there. So I was hoping he would stay behind me and we get a nice run off turn 4, but sadly he wrecked out and I got a third place finish.
And yeah, it's actually something that I also brought up is that, well, you had pushed him in about the first half of the race and essentially repaying the favor there in the final few laps. So your thoughts after this incredible race and having 100-degree track temperature in Fahrenheit, of course.
Oh, it was a fun race. That long green flag run with green flag pit stops, it was fun. Nice green flag run. The pit stops was nice. I hit my marks, and it was fun pushing Presley for a lot of that race. So yeah.
Before we go ahead and let you go celebrate your third place finish, who would you like to give a shout out to or thank for that third place finish?
Definitely Presley Sora. He helped me get to that place. Without him, I probably wouldn't be here right now. I'd like to thank everybody watching. I would like to thank William for holding this, and I'd like to thank my great team behind me, PPM, Peak Performance Motorsports, where I joined them just a couple weeks ago, and I'm doing pretty good with them.
Well, thank you for your time. Congratulations on your third place finish as well.
Thank you.
Well, folks, you saw it here on GSRC as Jamie Dobbs took his Toyota Supra to victory lane here at Talladega. We are about to head on out of here, but before we do, we want to thank all the companies that are listed on your screen that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast. Additional thanks to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. You can see her name on the screen as well as how to get a hold of her and to check out more of her great work. Special thanks to the team here today, Gary, Sean, Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find all of that information at globalsimracingchannel.com, or you can check us out on social media. We are at Global Sim Racing Channel on Twitter. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/Global Sim Racing Channel, or on Instagram at GSRC_Graham. Our next race will feature the Lotus 49s taken to the track at Mosport Park in the Grand Prix Legends Series tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. Our other series, next races are popping across your screen as I speak, so make sure to mark those down. But ladies and gentlemen, until next time, I'm DJ Clark reminding you to race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.